There's a few Rockies heading to the World Baseball Classic. If you look at the Team USA roster, it's kind of a flashback. Is this a good thing for Colorado Rockies players to be at the World Baseball Classic? I say yes, and we break it down in today's episode of Locked On Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 8th day of February in the year 2023. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here. Let's talk about the Colorado Rockies each and every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network. And folks might be wondering when we're going to be gearing back up to get back to 5 podcasts a week. That's going to be coming real soon. I think we ramp up to that next week, I believe. We are back to 5 podcasts a week. It might be the week after that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we'll be back in action talking Rockies baseball each and every day right here on the Locked On Rockies podcast with you, the Rockies fans. You can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can also find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. It's actually where you can hear the show first and be part of the show, where we record the episode live, and then you can be a part of it in the Locked On Rockies live chat as well. Today's episode of the Locked On Rockies podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook is the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on right now, today, to get started. Welcome into the live chat, Nicholas Delvo and Mateo. And I believe pitchers and catchers, it is next week. I think it is. Yeah, it should be next week. So that's when we pick things up. So the season's starting to build up. There's still a lot of wondering. And so one thing I'm really excited about this offseason, and I should say this preseason, I guess, because we're in preseason time now, is the World Baseball Classic. I think it's really cool that the World Baseball Classic has kind of got a little bit bigger, a little bit more fun, and a little bit more prominence in the world of baseball. And I think it's a wonderful event. I think it's a really cool thing to do. And I think it's a really cool way to really show the influence that baseball has. There's a lot of people that don't really know a lot about the countries where a lot of players that play in the league, or some of your favorite players, come from, or the influence of baseball around the world. I mean, like we said, we got Mateo in our live chat here from Italy. We got our friends that are in France, and the teams from the Netherlands, from Israel, from all of the Latin American countries, and of course, Team USA to see. I mean, Team USA's team is good. Back there was some times where you would make an argument that Team USA might not have sent the best players, but now that is simply not the case. Team USA is a really good team, and also comprised of a bunch of former Colorado Rockies and a couple of current Rockies, and that's what we're going to talk about more. How impactful is it for Rockies players to play in the World Baseball Classic? Is it really a big deal? Is it more than spring training and such? Is it a good way to gear up and prepare for the season? And I say yes. I think by putting yourself in, this is a competition that that everyone's going to take very seriously. I think this is a competition that is getting just even more and more serious, and more of a big deal for not only the players, but the nations of these teams. I think when you're going to see these teams play, and when you're seeing the names on the roster, and Nicholas, I'll tell you the Rockies here in just a second. It's a good thing. I mean, this is instead of spring training competition. And how many spring trainings have Kyle Freeland and Daniel Bard and Elias Diaz been to? Those are the 3 I can name off the top of my head that are playing in the World Baseball Classic. I don't think anyone else is from the Rockies. I believe it is just Freeland and Bard for Team USA. And then Elias Diaz is playing for, I should know this, but let me look it up so I don't mess it up. And he will be playing, let's see. Sorry, I know I should know this. Is it? I want to say it's Venezuela. Yeah, Venezuela. Yep. So Elias Diaz is going to be with Team Venezuela, and Herman Marquez, according to this as well. So there's even more Rockies getting in there. And so for those two pitchers, for Herman and Kyle Freeland especially, to be going out to play in something where it's not another it's not just another spring training. And I'm not saying they don't take spring training seriously, but it's kind of the doldrums of that career, right? I mean, they've done it. They'll report. They go to pitchers and catchers. They do this thing. That they've done all this stuff. But now their offseason preparation has been gearing up for live, real deal elite competition. You're not getting one of your starts. You're not going to throw 3 innings against just somebody's double A top prospect who's getting a lot of at bats. You're going up against some of the best and you're trying to win. I think starting that mentality off is exactly the right way that Rockies pitching especially needs to start the year and attack the year. Attack every series and everything like it matters, because it matters in the World Baseball Classic. Well, in the grand scheme of things, maybe it doesn't for some things, but it's a competition. It's a worldwide, global competition, and a moment to say that you are the best in the world. Out of they had a global competition of baseball players. You got to participate and participated, and you were the best. And to contribute to that is massive. So for Rockies pitching, and 3 incredibly important pitchers for the Rockies to be able to go into the beginning part of the season, even before they step on the field for a major league baseball game here in the States, they are going to go out and have already been competing at the Classic. They're going to kind of get into that. We need to win. We need to take it seriously. We're not shaking the rust off of game 162. You kind of get into that shortened, hyper-focused, hey, we only have, the Classic is only it's only like 2 weeks, something like that, 2-3 weeks, something like that. You got to win. You got to take advantage of every moment that you're on the field in that situation, because it could be the difference between, getting upset by some country that's coming in to just, happy to be there, or, kind of or asserting your dominance as a powerhouse baseball nation like the United States or some of these other countries would like to be, especially, these other teams, these nations that want to show like, hey, look at how many of your players are coming from here. Let's take a look here with Elias Diaz and Herman Marquez's teammates for Team Venezuela, and why it's good for Elias Diaz to be on that team, and why it's also it's some similar stuff for Elias Diaz as well. In just a moment, we'll also dive into the live chat here coming up in segment number 2. But before we do that, got to tell you about our friends at FanDuel. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they are the #1 sportsbook in America. It's FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, then it's the best time for you, folks. Yeah, I got a great opportunity for you. If you're looking to try something on the Super Bowl, you can download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with the no sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. You can even get in on the Rockies future bets on FanDuel if you want to get in on some baseball betting ahead of time. I believe there's also World Baseball Classic stuff going on there as well. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. And best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. Head to FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We are chatting here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I hope you make lots more Locked On podcasts your second listen of the day, like the Locked On MLB Prospects podcast, if you want to know everything going on in the world of MLB prospects. And of course, the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, and Locked On Nuggets podcasts have you covered in a very, very exciting world of Colorado sports right now. We're going to talk Team Venezuela here in just a moment, but Mateo says, actually, Italy team is very good through the European teams, the male one and also the female team. Interesting. How popular is women's baseball in Italy and in the region? And with Mike Piazza as the coach as well. For example, the Italy team has won a gold, 2 silver, and 2 bronze medal in the last 11 years. In the European Championship. So Team Italy, let's see if we can see if Team Italy has their roster out. But the World Baseball Classic like I said, this is a good opportunity. This is something that is going to be, it's something that you can really look at and appreciate that the Rockies are getting an opportunity to do something like this and play in this, because I think the experience is going to be huge for these players getting into that win. These are players that I believe in. Elias Diaz, I believe in his he's a veteran catcher. I think he does what he does well. And I think to talk about him here on the Venezuelan side, I think him getting live real deal at bats, if we can see flashes of Elias Diaz connecting to having some power in the World Baseball Classic, great sign for the Rockies. I am not holding my hopes to be huge on Elias Diaz this year, but again, real deal live at bats are great for these type of players, because again, I just think they don't need to do spring training again. There is not, you look at these names and the Rockies players that are going, they don't need to do spring training again. And what's nice about there is that means extra time for players in spring training, extra time for Rockies pitchers to see what we can see there. And honestly, extra time for Brian Serven to do some stuff and have more, more time there. I know veterans won't usually play anyway in spring training, but now they can kind of the players that need to ratchet it up, which you can easily say are those 4. I don't actually. Daniel Bard needs to repeat. That's fine with me, and maybe clean up a little bit on the walks. But Marquez, Freeland, Diaz, all three of them getting in a good mindset, going to play live competitive ball against great players is going to be a big time upgrade for them versus going to spring training. And then again, I think for Elias Diaz, he's going to be around a lot of good players and a lot of good people that I think are going to help him build up his game. Let's take a look at Team Venezuela here for the World Baseball Classic. This is at least of late January. I think they're doing more, and I think there might even be potentially more rosters being announced tonight or something like that. But Jose Altuve, Luis Arias, and Pablo Lopez are all on the Venezuelan national team. They also are Miguel Rojas, Miguel Cabrera, Eugenio Suarez, Salvador Perez, Afasil Garcia, Martin Perez, Ranger Suarez, Brusudar Graterol, Jesus Luzardo, and then Herman Marquez, Jose Alvarado, and Luis Garcia. I mean, these are all teams that this is definitely a team that could be in a position to do some serious damage. And Herman going to be in the bullpen, according here to this Fan Nation piece, but that's all right. I mean, that's going to be fine for us anyway. Being around those type of players, this is going to be nice, solid experience for the Rockies here I'm excited. I really think that this is. I know I kind of it might not. We've kind of circled around, but this is the type of stuff that the Rockies need from their veterans, because they need to be able to count on them to go to do something like that and then come back ready to go. And I think they will. I think by going out and competing in something like the World Baseball Classic is the exact way to start the season for us, the three pitchers and a catcher. But I'm really kind of focusing on. I think it's going to be great for Elias Diaz, sure, but I'm more focused on the. I think the impact will be greater for the pitchers, even if they're not pitching a ton. It's just giving themselves in the environment. I want to win. I want to be a part of a winning team. It's going to help the Rockies in close situations, because I think they will be able to avoid some of the doldrums that spring training can bring on. We'll take a look at Team Italy for our friend Matteo here and see what they got, and take more comments from the live chat here in segment number 3, coming right up. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We are also live on YouTube, where we got lots of Rockies fans tuning in, including our friend Matteo, all the way from Italy. And he says to watch out for Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic. Here we go. Trey Mancini on first. Max Stassi behind the dish. Miles Mastrobuni, I'm going to say, second. I'm so bad with names, and I shouldn't be, but Nicky Lopez, David Fletcher, Sam Haggerty, Brandon Nimmo, Dominic Fletcher, Andre Bellintente, Daniel Castano, Jordan Romano, Jeff Pasantino, Joe La Sorsa, Joey Marciano, Matt Festa, and Mitchell Stumpo. There you go. Team Italy. They got some firepower there in that offense for sure. I haven't heard of too many of those pitchers, but again, there's so many players that you learn about, and that's one of the cool parts of the World Baseball Classic. Rat King says Diaz was a joke of an extension, and Eric Harper follows that up with saying, I hope we upgrade our catcher, though Romo is coming up, and I do like Servin. The Rockies are, again, waiting on Romo. I think they believe highly in Romo. He's still being regarded as one of the Rockies' top prospects. Servin is definitely going to fill time. And a joke might be harsh, but you don't need to buy that much into a player like Elias Diaz. He was fine. And he's never had a full great season, and he's often had really tough stretches as well, where Elias Diaz should not be the starting catcher for the Rockies. It should be Servin going into this. And I bet you did Romo get an invite to spring training? I can't remember. But anyway, extending Elias Diaz was just kind of one of those, like, it seemed like the one that you didn't need to do that, especially when you're going to go to Servin and you played Servin as much as you did last year anyway. I wish I could say my confidence in Elias Diaz was higher this season, but between the errant throws last year and the pop just not seeming to be as consistent and there as much as the Rockies needed it, I'd rather see what the Rockies have in the system for the catcher position. But Elias Diaz has a good relationship and has caught these pitchers for a while. There's a benefit to that as well. He's a veteran, solid catcher that you can put in. It's And you're right. Eric Harper, again, Servin had an exciting. Let's see what was Brian Servin's final line with the Rockies, because he ended up playing quite a bit. 187 at bats, batting 203, an OBP of 261, an OPS of 593 with 6 home runs, 16 RBIs in that time. He strikes out a lot. Servin, 44 strikeouts to 13, but you're hoping that changes. It's kind of just some classic catcher stuff. Servin doesn't enthrall me as a catcher, but the catcher's position is very, very hard to figure out. So they'll be fine. Again, I don't expect the Rockies catchers to be we banked too much on Elias Diaz last season, like thought too highly of him. And I just think people need to keep it in check of realistically, the Rockies catchers are not going to be tremendous. And hopefully I'm wrong, but I really think that that's going to be the case. I think you're going to get a pretty classic catcher season from both Elias Diaz and Servin there. Jeremy McDude says, at this point, does baseball have enough international support to be an Olympic sport? I believe it is back in the Olympics. I thought it was back in the Olympics in the last summer ones, but it was revived. Yeah, it was in there, and it is expected to be in 2028. I guess it's not going to be in 2024, but or whenever. I don't know I don't really know what I'm confused at why this is arena, but yeah, Japan won the gold and United States took silver and the Dominican Republic took bronze. So baseball and softball both back in the Olympics, and as they should be. They really should never have left, and that should be something there. So I think baseball's international. I mean, and embrace it. I mean, the Rockies, or not just the Rockies, but the entire league is benefiting from players from across the globe coming into the game and making it a better place. I mean, the big names, the biggest names in baseball have been players that have come to the United States to play baseball. The faces, I know they've been bad outside of Mike Trout, basically. I mean, and obviously there's others, but you know, your Tatises, your Altuves, and your Machados are all, we're all not from here in the States, and it's a global game. Baseball is certainly bigger than just America's pastime. There are a lot of places that care a ton about baseball, and we're going to see it on full display here at the World Baseball Classic. I'm really, really excited for it, and I hope you all are as well. But folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Rockies podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Great crowd today in the live chat. Thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in and being a part of the live chat. You can have your Rockies questions answered live here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. All you got to do is just tune into the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Just search Locked On Rockies. Hit subscribe. If you hit that little bell button, you'll know when we are going live as well. Episodes are posted first to YouTube and, of course, free and streaming anywhere you like shortly after. You can find us on the Locked On Podcast Network, just like you can find the Locked On MLB Prospects podcast and our friends, the Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Avalanche, and Locked On Broncos podcast. Until next time, this has been Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.